Hello gaming, my name is Nichoals and today I'm going to be reviewing an absolutely fantastic rhythm roguelike dungeon crawler, currently in early access, Crypt of the NecroDancer. Pay attention to that part though, it is in early access, it is nowhere near finished, so I do not recommend picking it up unless you are down for the experience of the game developing over time, or the worst case scenario, never being finished. If you pick it up in its current state, you are making a gamble, so do be warned. Now, with that caveat out of the way, good lord, this game has so much potential. While the early access risk still applies, the game is in alpha and has more content than some completed games. There's quite a few placeholders and a few bugs to sort out, but you can expect those to be sorted out over time. That said, taking the sentiment from another reviewer, Total Biscuit, the moment you release a game and start charging money for it, you can consider it published. And a lot of the alpha is alpha, beta is beta defense doesn't really apply. If you are selling it like a finished product, it should be critiqued as one. So with that, let's get on with it. You'll find that whatever gripes I have about this game come from the fact that it is released as an early access title, and I accept a degree of bias to that. But I've been burned and jaded by the concept far too many times to be anything but suspicious about it. Brace Yourself Games, also known as One Person, and their publisher Cly Entertainment have given me no particular reason to distrust them, but it's just important that you know what you're getting into. So, Crypt of the NecroDancer. Yes. A title that sounds like the pun came first and then the entire game was built around it, and that might actually be accurate. Crypt of the NecroDancer is a roguelike rhythm game. Conceptually, that sounds mad, but it's been executed amazingly well. Instead of the traditional roguelike mechanic of you move, they move, Crypt of the NecroDancer has your character and the enemies around her move to the beat. As a rhythm game, it will be made or broken with the soundtrack, and considering my opening statements have sounded less like a review and more like a marriage proposal, it is fantastic. Catchy, mood setting, fast and energetic. Perhaps faster than you'd like at first. It is initially quite difficult to get used to from the usual roguelike, as meticulous planning means naught because 6 beats have gone by and that skeleton is now wearing you as a hat. But eventually you get into it. And I mean really get into it, and you'll be dancing around the dungeons destroying enemies in a well-practiced order. Enemies have their own specific movement and attack patterns, health, special abilities, etc. And it is very easy to own yourself on the very first enemy of any threat by not paying attention or not learning its attack movements. Conversely, once you learn their characteristics, monstrous bosses and swarms of enemies can be skillfully skirted around and dispatched in a game that is hard but fairly so. You died because you weren't dancing. You died because you danced wrong. Very rarely, if ever, will you die due to procedural generation, as it seems like with all the resources at your disposal, there is always an escape plan. Speaking of resources, items, armor and weapons. Arrow keys can be pressed in conjunction in what feels like keyboard DDR to use items and cast spells, and new items completely change how you attack, thus changing your plan of strategy. You might find a spear that lets you attack 2 spaces away instead of 1, or a whip that lets you attack diagonally, or a broadsword that attacks the 3 spaces in front of you, and so on. In addition, your shovel, which allows you to dig through dirt walls but not anything else, may be replaced by a different version or variant allowing you to dig through hard rock or other obstacles. There are little hidden rooms and walled off areas for you to explore if you have the right tools, or you could always go buy them from the shop, in which the shopkeep lends his magnificent voice to the tune as you walk in. There are characters that do this in the hub area as well, the place you go where you're inevitably killed for failing to dance properly. Here you can also buy permanent upgrades with the gems you have collected in the dungeons, but if you do not use them before starting again, they disappear. This prevents you from saving up gems for an expensive upgrade to give you an unfair advantage before you really deserve it. Overall, I like the permanent upgrade system, but I do sometimes feel that health or additional coin pickup instead of just more varieties of items creates an artificial skill progression, where the character becomes more powerful, but you as the player might stay the same skill-wise. It's a clever trick to give the player some satisfaction and help them along if they're terrible, but for some this may feel like a betrayal of the true essence of a roguelike title, at least the more hardcore masochists out there. You do always have the choice not to buy health upgrades, I suppose. The hub has a whole bunch of stuff in it, a lot of it at this time locked, but what's there is encouraging. For instance, there's a local co-op available where the second player used WASD, an easier mode designed for dance pads, a hardcore mode, a daily challenge, various rooms unlockable by saving trapped people in the dungeon, and a character select room. Change your characters once again changes the entire game. The other character unlocked from the start, the Bard, plays like a normal roguelike, where his movement prompts enemy movement, and there's no need for the beat. Interesting that it's there, and it's a nice inclusion, but one I'll probably stay away from as for the most part I came here to dance. If you somehow manage to get bored of the original soundtrack, you can upload your own MP3s and kill monsters to the Bee Gees or Slayer or anything else you can possibly think of. Although, it is currently a pain to set up in the alpha. You know what? I want to see this as a party game. People on dance mats taking turns dodging slime to horrible club music. Absolute riot. In conclusion, Crypt of the NecroDancer is one of the few early access titles I can confidently give a recommendation for in its current state. Early days it may be, but a lot is there, and what is there is polished to a beautiful shine. That said, they have high aims with the amount of content planned, almost concerningly so, and at its current price point, $15 US, I'm really quite on the fence about it. What's here is fantastic, but for the most part, I don't know if it's $15 worth of game yet. If you are absolutely enthralled by the concept like me, then by all means pick it up, but know you're taking a risk like with all early access. If you're not dying to see this in action, I would wait and see. This is a straight up recommendation, but depending on who you are, it will be an immediate one or one down the line.